In perhaps the shortest aviation accident investigation in aviation history, investigators will be able to quickly determine that this pilot's risky attitude got him into thunderstorms that he should have been nowhere near in his Wheeler Express home-built experimental aircraft. My name's Juan Brown. You're watching the BLANCOLIRIO channel. Let's check it out. This video is brought to you by the people over here on Patreon that make this content possible. Thank you for your support. This accident occurred back on the 5th of May at 1939 local time, Wheeler Express 2000. More on that in a minute. November 519 Echo Alpha. One fatality. The owner, operator, and builder of the aircraft was destroyed when it impacted trees and terrain near Polk, Idaho. Pilot sustained fatal injuries. ADSB data shows that the airplane was cruising at 3,000 feet when it entered an erratic flight path that continued up to the end of the track, which lasted about 13 minutes. At the time of the accident, two nearby airports were reporting an overcast ceiling at 3,000 feet, 2 miles visibility, heavy rain, and thunderstorms with distant lightning and mist. And there's the Taft and METAR of the nearby airports. Lots of wind, rain, and thunderstorm activity. Here's the ADSB data from the flight departing a Cleveland area, getting up to only about 2,500 feet, presumably staying below the clouds, and then the very erratic flight path just prior to impact, way over here. 13 minutes of erratic flying at about the 3,000 to 4,000 foot elevation. Now, if we download the KML data and put it in Google Earth, if you scroll all the way down here on the left, export KML, or right down here, you can grab this data, save it to your hard drive, and then open it up in Google Earth. Let me get this where you can see it. File, open, and then open the data that you just downloaded, and instantly you get a 3D view of the GPS data, or ADSB data. And here you can see the erratic flight data of the final 13 minutes, including just some crazy twists and turns in the directional control of the aircraft. And it looks like initially the pilot did a fair job of maintaining altitude throughout all of this. But then in the bitter end here, did the aircraft come apart in the air? Investigators will be able to quickly determine that if they can find all four corners of the aircraft, or was this simply just a loss of directional control of the aircraft? Now, I don't have a good source yet as to how to replay the radar on the 5th of May, but going back on Zoom Earth here, we can certainly look at the satellite imagery from the 5th of May. This is 4 p.m. Pacific time, just before sunset, when apparently the accident happened. And we can see right away the flight, he took off out of Cleveland and then took a right turn and just headed right into these thunderstorms brewing in this area here. And here you can clearly see the tops of these thunderstorms. Had this pilot gone a little further and gotten behind these thunderstorms, he could have avoided them altogether. Now let's listen to the ATC audio as we look at the ADSB data.
519 Echo Alpha, Cleveland approach. If you're on frequency and you need assistance, let me know.
So ATC knows he's having some sort of trouble.
519 Echo Alpha, Cleveland approach on guard. If you hear me and you need assistance, contact me on 128.25.
But they can't get a hold of him. And I thought, as soon as I turned this up, I thought he was already a goner. But he's going to pop up here in a couple of minutes and check out what he says. Here's an indication of the weather the pilot was facing, as reported by ATC.
Yeah, 10-4. There is an area of moderate to heavy precip about your 1 o'clock and 3 miles, about 5 miles in diameter. Seems pretty stationary at the moment. Just let me know if you need any deviations west.
And that was for a different aircraft than Echo Alpha.
519 Echo Alpha, Cleveland approach. Again, is observed. If you're trying to get out of the weather, I suggest about a 170 headed for about 5 miles. Stay level and fly 170.
Suggest a 170.
I'm with you.
He's with him. So center says ident is observed, and for the pilot to fly a 170 heading to get out of the weather.
Number 519 Echo Alpha, roger, and how's your ride there at 3,800, and do you need any assistance?
It's a rough flight up here. I got myself in a mess. I'm going to try and land over here at the next airport.
It's a rough ride up here. I got myself in a mess. I'm going to try to land at the next airport up here.
519 Echo Alpha, Roger. And just from what I'm looking at as far as your weather right now, are you trying to get back into Ashland? Are you looking for Ashland?
3 Golf 4.
Okay, number 9 Echo Alpha, do you have it in sight as I get your, now you're going to turn in, do you need a vector?
I don't think so. I just gonna have a hell of a time controlling this airplane is all.
Okay, so it's okay. So if you can, I'm going to put you on a different frequency because this is Cleveland. I'm going to put you on Cleveland.
140 heading and one.
Okay, they're suggesting a heading of 140 if you can, so we're going to try to get you out of that weather.
Do you need a vector? I don't think so, he says. I'm just having a hell of a time controlling this airplane.
519 Echo Alpha, Cleveland approach, yep.
9 Echo Alpha, you still with me?
That was the last we heard of 9 Echo Alpha. So who was this pilot and what was this aircraft that he was flying? Well, the news has identified him as 72-year-old Gary Wolfelt of West Lafayette, Indiana, where family members reported that Wolfelt was flying from the Cleveland Clinic where he'd been visiting relatives and that he'd been flying for years, and the plane that he was in was hand-built. Gary built this Wheeler Express over a 17-year period. Neighbors near the crash site saw and heard the plane flying before it crashed. When I looked out my front window, I saw a plane, and it looked like it was tumbling end over end. I just started screaming for my daughter to look. It looked like the plane was going to crash. The local highway patrol couldn't determine if weather was a factor, but there were thunderstorms in northeast Ohio around the time of the crash. There were severe storms in the area at the time of the crash. They definitely coincided with one another, and that is an unfortunate fact of this case. Now, the aircraft that Gary was flying was the Wheeler Express. This is a neat all-composite aircraft that was designed back in the 80s, a 4-seat, fixed-gear, constant-speed propeller, kit-built aircraft. This kind of predated the whole Cessna Textron and Cirrus models of aircraft. And we even had one here at our local airport in Nevada County for a long time, and it was an excellent performing machine. And one of the most interesting twists to this story is that Gary Wolfelt pre-wrote his own obituary prior to his passing. And I found it here online, and it's really quite telling of what eventually happened to him. He says, "Hello, I'm Gary. I'm completely dead now. I am surprised that it took this long to happen. I've had several close calls throughout my lifetime. I guess that I was just lucky that something didn't get me long before now. I had a long series of events and mishaps, and that looking back on it should have killed me long ago." And then he goes on in his obituary and chronologically through all the different things that should have killed him years ago, including getting whacked by a baseball early on in his career there. And then his wife, Esther, at the end of his obit, explains about the aircraft. He graduated from high school, Jefferson High School there in 1970. He was interested in aviation and pursued the Purdue School of Aviation Technology, and that he moved on to build a fixed-wing. Oh, first he learned to fly a helicopter, then he moved on to build a fixed-wing aircraft. Took him 17 years to build his beloved Express aircraft. After detailing all the close calls he had in his life, he says, "I cannot tell you here what sort of event actually killed me, as I wrote this obituary before I was completely dead. Someone else will have to fill in the details later on, I guess. So maybe that's my job. I really hate paying the Journal and Courier a lot of money just to let people who might be looking for me know that they can give up now. The chances are pretty good you're not in my will anyway, so I'll try to keep the rest of this obituary as short as possible." But he goes on for quite a impressive read. See the link below for the rest of this. And to any of you that knew Gary, is this pretty typical of his kind of behavior? And does this final crash of Gary and his Wheeler Express surprise anybody that knew him? And as we review this accident and I read Gary's obituary, I'm reminded of the 5 dangerous attitudes that the FAA puts out. And those that knew Gary, does Gary fit some of these profiles? You know, at the very end of that ATC audio, it sounds to me I can hear a sense of resignation in his voice when he's struggling to maintain control of that aircraft. But what got him into that situation in the first place? Was it an anti-authority attitude, or invulnerability, it won't happen to me, or macho, I can do it sort of attitude, or anti-authority, don't tell me what to do? Any one of these sort of attitudes could really drive a pilot to do some very poor ADM, or aeronautical decision making. Do you know any pilots like this? If so, why don't you have a talk to them before I have to do a report on them here on the BLANCOLIRIO channel. Thank you so much for your support of this channel, especially the folks over on Patreon that make this content possible. See you here.